Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Asus here with the Van Bros. Today, I wanted to do a video that sort of talked about the positives of overdress, specifically the D era as a whole. And I said I would after my failed mechanics videos. So, honestly, in my opinion, and this is my opinion, 100% my opinion, there's nothing here that is a fact, but pretty much, I do feel that overdress kind of gets overlooked by not a majority. I think a majority of the people who play overdress format, which is the main format, do tend to swing more towards a positive outlook of the game. And I do like overdress. Regardless of the amount of videos I make hating on some of the mechanics, I do think that it is a good era of the game. And I wanted to talk about some of the mechanics and some of the things that were added to the game, and also strengthened from previous eras that, in my opinion, I think are good changes to the game. So I think this is also unscripted, so don't expect anything like too crazy. And I may go back and forth in some subjects and some of the points I'm gonna make, but I think, if anything, I'm gonna start off with what I think is one of my favorite things that they added to the game, which is, and I'm gonna put this as a blanket term, and I will talk about each separately, but the once per game skills that they added to the game are actually really interesting. Like Divine skill, Ace skills for the Ace units, Regalis pieces I think are really cool, depending on the piece itself. And Phantom skills as well. I know those are not once per game, but they are a limited skill. If anything, let's talk about Divine skill. That's the one that kicked off Divines. I think it's really cool. And I think the way they went about it is also really cool. There were Divine skills that were legitimately like extending your plays in ways that like you weren't really using the skill to win the game at that time, but it was more so a way to set up to win the game later on in the match. There were skills like Vargas, which actually were game closers and forced your opponent to sort of guard in a specific way. Rezai also is cool because it gave the player a skill that they could heal on the 6th damage, which I thought was very, very cool. And it also had a way of putting triggers back in the deck. Honestly, I'm going to say, I understand why they have the whole like put triggers back into the deck. But I think like even without that skill, just the fact that like you can change any trigger into a heal when you would take your 6 damage was interesting enough in its own, even without having to put the crits back. Putting the crits back, in my opinion, is like kind of like the icing on the cake. There are so many interesting Divine skills. The things that I didn't like about Divine skills, and I'm not going to be too negative because I think the mechanic itself is awesome. It's just kind of like the balancing in Divine skills. Like you had decks that gained a 4th attack just on their Divine skill turn, which I thought was a little ridiculous. I think, if anything, a Divine skill shouldn't like be what gives you like an extra attack, but should be something that can maximize that extra attack. Like imagine if like Vargas Divine skill was the Vanguard restand and that was just the one time. It would make the deck go from, at the time, a decent like 3rd, like honestly like probably like out of all the top decks, I think Varga was probably 3 when it came to strength on release. But had it just had that Divine skill where it's just once per game you could restand your Vanguard, I think it would have kind of flopped. Although it still had some pretty good control. The next one I would say is Ace units. Oh my gosh. I love the Ace units. I think they are some of the most interesting cards that we have gotten in a while. I remember originally I wasn't a big fan of them because of the lack of shield, but then I realized that their skills weren't like, you weren't using these cards to finish the games. You were using these cards to aid you in it, similar to how Divine skills worked in some of them. But what I really liked about them was that I honestly don't think there's a single bad Ace unit. Maybe the Dragon Empire one, because unlike the other Ace units, this one doesn't really search. It kind of just draws and retires, but that retiring is the main thing that Dragon Empire is known for. I think maybe it should have retired and bound a unit to kind of play into all aspects of Dragon Empire instead of just Kagero. but it's still interesting. I love the Keter one, and the Stoicheia one is insane. The Brancate one is great. The Dark States one is great. I never read the Lyrical one, but I can also like assume it's a great card. I mean, they're used in almost every deck. Like if you have a deck that is off by one card and you haven't put an Ace unit in there, you typically just chuck it in there. Even if it's a deck like Youthberg, where it doesn't really have much energy to spare, most people will just chuck in an Ace unit because, hey, if I go second, I get that extra 3 energy and my Ace unit can pop off. Aside from that, aside from Divine Skills and Ace units, I think my next one-off type of skill is the Regalis pieces. These started off kind of vanilla in my opinion. I think the first Regalis piece that we got was Forbidal, and like the green transmigration circle or transmigratory or whatever. Like, I think originally those, like the Forbidal was insane because in premium it like you call 2 grade 3, so like it, and also in Bastion, it was crazy in Bastion. But then we got the Chalice, and I think the Chalice is what showed like the true like strength of what these Regalis pieces were, because the Chalice actually provided something for Overdress that, you know, at the time we kind of were like, oh wait, we're kind of limited to 4 Persona Rides, which you guys know my opinion on Persona Ride. But a piece that can help you find, like, you know, have an extra way of doing a Persona Ride really did bump up some decks. The next wave were even crazier. The fact that we got a card that said counter charge 1, soul charge 1, essentially, because you just put it into the soul. That was insane. But not only that, it was also just a free draw 2. I remember people going crazy. It's like, oh my god, Pot of Greed in Vanguard, and it's actually Pot of Greed because it's free. But the fact that you were able to counter charge or just soul charge is insane. I remember when I first played Rezael, I was playing with the Chalice, and Marco Bagwandi was playing Android with the Chalice as well. And so, like, we're kind of going back and forth as to, like, well, I was kind of going back and forth, but he's always been a Chalice enjoyer. Because, I mean, having an extra way to Persona Ride is kind of crazy. The next couple ones that we got were also insane. And I think I will say it was ridiculous when we got Bracing Angel Ladder. I think out of all the Regalis pieces, that one, in my opinion, is like one of the crazier ones when it came out. Like nowadays, most people don't even use it. And I don't believe it's because of, like, you know, it's mainly because of the type of deck that was good. At the time, it was Shiranui with Dominate, and so Bracing Angel Ladder came in at a time where everybody needed it, and it kind of felt like you were buying yourself an extra turn. And I'll be honest, I played against Shiranui players, and whenever I put a Bracing Angel Ladder in Soul, I felt like a scumbag because I drew the one-off. It was, at that point, I think it's just because it was a lingering effect, and it felt so sacky. Vanguard doesn't usually have lingering effects, and this one was one of the first ones. I think Honolly was the first one in terms of a lingering effect, when they retrained it. I think it was Honolly. Even if it wasn't, it's just, you know, a card, in my opinion, should either trade off with another card or should help you access something stronger. I don't believe a card should be allowed to, once it's out of the field, continue to affect the board. Now, you know, this is for standard. In premium, it's probably completely different. But I feel like the only thing that should affect or have a lingering effect is triggers, because it's only during the battle phase that they really will affect you, unless you're playing like Angel Feather or pinging for damage. But it's very niche cases where it happens. And honestly, even just that alone, like, wasn't enough to kind of deter me from Regalis pieces, because then after that, we got fucking one of the craziest ones. We got Twin Cast, which is insane. It's such a good card. Defense when we needed defense the most. The Fire Regalis was also an insane card. I think, I don't know what I was on, but Marco was the first one to kind of purchase one. He purchased the Fire Regalis, and I'm like, I'm still just going to use Twin Cast. Twin Cast is way better. And I'm like, oh, Bracing Angel Ladder is way better. But then, now, if you watch most of my deck profiles, it literally is all just Fire Regalis. It's either Fire Regalis or Twin Cast. I have nothing that could beat those two. From there, the other Regalis pieces were great, except, you know, the fact that they put 2 new pieces inside starter product, and that starter product's out of print. So if you ever want to play Shroud and Shadow, Got to pay $70, which is great. I love that. But even then, I still am in the opinion that it's either Fire Regalis or Twin Cast. Or if we're playing like an encounter deck or a deck with a clan icon, the Fire Heat Blazer, the Chalice for encounter decks. Those are my first category of mechanics that I really like from Overdress, and D-Era as a whole. Honestly, if I were to look at D-Era, one of the coolest things that they did was also emphasize more use of the orders. Orders technically started back in V-Series, and they weren't utilized at all. Like, it was like, I think the one playable order, in my opinion, was the MLB order, and that was kind of it. But, like, the orders in Overdress were really, really cool. There are some that are better than others, obviously. And I don't think they really hit deck building, or I don't think they affected deck building for a majority of decks until we got to late DZ. But, I mean, it was still very, very interesting. It's honestly insane that one of the things that I find crazy is that we got Teeth Fault and Wisdom in the same set, and I don't think anybody was running it at the time, which is insane to me. I'm going to confirm, but I don't think that we did get... I think Wisdom and Teeth Fault both came out in D set 8. Not DZ8, but D set 8. Let's see. Teeth Fault. I'm looking this up right now. Teeth Fault came out... No, DBT 11. Teeth Fault came out in DBT 11, and Wisdom came out... That's a promo. Here we go. Okay, Wisdom came out in DBT 08. Teeth Fault came out in DBT 11. But we didn't actually see them in decks, I think, until like the first Divine set dropped with Rezael, because we also got Sirgan and they kind of worked together. Sirgan was a crazy card. I think that card needs to be banned outright if we're going to keep choice restricting it. If the next ban list, they choice restrict Sirgan with another deck, they really just need to flat out ban it. I don't know why they're so hesitant on banning Sirgan, but, what can you do? The orders, in my opinion, are one of the coolest things that they did. The types of orders that we got, Blitz, Set, and Normal, are also really cool. I think Blitz orders were interesting because it was another way to guard. Very similar to G Guardians, and honestly, I kind of wish that they would expand more on Blitz orders to be kind of similar to G Guardians. It'd be cool to have like hybrid orders. Like, oh, this is a Blitz order that once used, instead of going to the drop zone, it becomes a set order. And so, like, now you have a card that has two applications. It would be cool to see something like that, like maybe a Blitz that gives you, like, 15k shield. If the attack does not hit, you place it rest on your set order zone. And then, what's it called? At the beginning of your turn, you can stand it. And, I don't know, maybe during the opponent's turn, you can tap your order, your set order, to get an extra, like, 5k shield. Something like that, I think, would be cool. Now, at that point, it would affect some decks, because I think there are some decks that cannot have other set orders in the set order zone. But, at that point, that's just the deck's limitation. Not all decks can run all the cards. But I think that's something cool that they could expand on. But even then, the Blitz orders we have are cool. It's funny because Blitz orders are like some of the orders that have the most bans, I'm pretty sure. This is off the top of my head. I haven't looked up any numbers or anything like that. But like, I think with that big ban of like all of like the like extension cards, not even the defensive cards. They didn't really hit that many defensive cards. They just hit the cards that extended your plays and put PGs back. But like, I think majority of it was just Blitz orders, because at the end of the day, the most important phase in Vanguard is the battle phase, especially the guard step. And so finding a way to increase your shield, increase the attack, that's always going to have a big emphasis. It's always going to be emphasized. The set orders, I think, are interesting. I don't like the fact that Brant has kind of made that their kind of like their nation identity. I think Brant was already cool because it was like the station where the like any like extraterrestrials came in. Like, I always kind of pictured Brant as kind of like Planet Craze, like not well, technically it is like their law enforcement, because they have like, the Aurora Battle Princesses, and they have the Dimensional Robos, which are kind of like the Earth's security. And ironically enough, like it's also where most of the aliens come in. So, like, I don't know, I always felt like they could have done something. But then again, when you think about it, I think set orders honestly do have more thematic reasons to be Brantgate's identity over any other nation. because you can do so much with set orders. I mean, they made one a prison, they made one a base for your heroes, they made one a moon, like a moon station. They made products out of them, like that you can operate. Like I think the set orders for Brant are interesting. I do feel like a lot of people kind of have like some sort of like they are kind of right that, yeah, it does feel like the ride lines for a lot of Brant Gate decks are just, oh, you played this on top of a specific starter, or you just played this card. Either rest it, do nothing, or, you know, create a token and place a set order from deck or generate it and continue the gameplay. So maybe they could be a bit more like creative when it comes to setting it up, but honestly, it's just for simplicity's sake. Thematics over simplicity, in my opinion. Like, how else are you going to get your base up? Like, you can't just start the game with it. So it has to be the grade 1 that does it. And the bases do a lot of different things. Like, it's not like everything does the same thing. And even outside of Brant, we also have cards that act similar to set orders. Like, I mean, a niche example is in Keter, we have the Undercover deck, which has the Monitor Trist, which you put cards face down as Gauge, I believe. And then you can select from there, and, you know, as long as they're undercover units, because they're assassins and they're hiding in the trees, which is cool. It's like, that's another thing too that Overdress does, is just the themes of these decks is actually like very cool. Like, look at Undercover, you're having assassins hide in the trees that you could call later when you're starting to your attack. You have heroes that are in your base that you can call when you're in the battle phase. Like, I understand that it's a lot of it feels samey, but like when you look into the themes of it, to me, the Overdress beats any era of Cardfight Vanguard when it comes to thematics, and I think it's very neat. We also, I mean, look at the fact that like we've gone away from just having 7 circles from the base board to more zones where cards can be placed, more zones a card can inhabit. We have, you know, obviously your 7 circles, or yeah, you have your 7, your Vanguard, your 5 rear guards, and your Guardian circle. We have the drop zone, the deck, but now we have the set order zone. We have different locations that are not the set order zone, but kind of similar. Like Odium has the regress time gauge, and like Gauge too. Like, I understand V also worked a lot of this stuff in, but the fact that, like, I don't know, it just feels more like more in depth in Overdress to me. I feel like that's something that gets looked over as well, because I feel like they play around with, they're able to kind of look outside of the box when it comes to how cards can be played. It's no longer just the, you know, like, we have this limited amount of spaces, so we can only do so much. And with the extra zones, with the extra places of habitation for cards, I do feel like it is kind of like, it does kind of like make you think, man, if they are able to do all this kind of stuff, then why can't we have decks that play a bit more differently than one another? Like, why do they all play so samey? And to that, I would say, yeah, but no. One of the things I've kind of been realizing is, as time goes on, Vanguard kind of just devolves to multi-attack. It happened in G, happened in Legion. Not so much in V. In V, it was just straight up power creep. But, like, every time we get close to a certain point, before a game kind of has a full-on reboot or a soft reboot, it seems like multi-attack kind of just takes over. Unless it's a degenerate deck, in my opinion, like a deck, some of like no CL Gize or any like deck that just kind of has to OTK you, doesn't really play Vanguard. It just kind of sets up an OTK machine to just kill that way. But yeah, I don't know. I one of the things that, I don't know, gets me excited about Overdress 2 is just the fact that, like, the units too kind of feel like the units themselves have more personalities than the characters, and that's because of the community. I think the community for Overdress has kind of like taken these units and made identities for them. Like, during Cardfight Vanguard, like the original series, like, I saw mainly people who liked the characters who played the decks, which is all awesome either way. But there wasn't that many people, like, there weren't that many people talking more about, like, the units, or at least not as the way that you see them now. There's way more fan art now of, like, units themselves as opposed to the characters who played the units. And for an IP that is, one, an original IP, and two, is always growing, the fact that, like, the newer characters are getting fan art is a testament to how well they have done this. I used to be a little jaded when it came to the units for Overdress because I thought, man, like they're not as cool as Blaster Blade, they're not as cool as the old start, like the old style cards. But then I thought about it and I thought, well, I really, if you were to ask me some of my favorite decks, I remember when Overdress came out, and I was, or not Overdress, but when Divinez was going on, I really liked playing Reziel to the point where I was like, man, I love blasters, but this has got to be my favorite deck to play just because of the way it plays. Youthberg was such a cool deck. The concept at the time of being like the new like like the Edgelord deck was so cool. Like and I mean like the theme song they gave Rika was insane. But honestly, like I don't know, it's just the emphasis on Youthberg himself. I'm a Keter guy. I love Keter. Same thing with Bastion. Bastion, when I first saw him reveal, I just thought, wow, I've never seen a unit like this before. Like we've seen Knights, but we've never seen something like him. Like he actually felt like something straight out of like a fairy tale, like a black horse with white streaks on a knight in pearlescent white armor. Like it to me, it was just the epitome of cool. And it also didn't help that we were coming out of the most nostalgic slop era of Vanguard. I think had we jumped from G to Overdress, we would have been in a better spot game-wise. We would have less detractors, and we'd see more positive pushes. Not that there aren't, but there could be more. And it's not for the fault of the community, it's the fault of the company. They could do a lot better. Maybe not canceling fan projects would be a start, or even, getting us up-to-date translations of lore, mangas, the same stuff that Japan gets. They want to be a global TCG company. Maybe they could give us the same love that they give to Japan. But we'll have to wait and see. I'm trying to think of some of the other stuff of Divinez that I really like. Again, not scripted. I'm just kind of putting out what I really like from Divinez. The units are cool. I love the thematics, the aesthetics of these decks. Card design is a little wonky. We don't talk about 2004 to 2005 Cardfight Vanguard. The products that they've released, I think in 2004 they did a pretty decent job with products. Except, actually no, 2004 is when we got the quick start decks. And so, in my opinion, 2004 already starts with a thumbs down. 2003 had a pretty decent wave of product, but I don't know. I don't understand why they never went back to the $5 like starter decks. I honestly thought that was a genius way to get people into the card game. They made the first 5. They made a regular trial deck for Kyrie. I don't think she was a $5 starter deck, but she did include dice, and the long dice were nice. I thought that the Boff Saga trial deck was cool, but that one didn't come with dice either, and I don't know if that one was a $5 deck. In the comments below, let me know if that one was a $5 deck on release. But I don't know. I just don't understand why they never continued with it. Like, it was awesome. Like, somebody wanted to start playing Vanguard. Hey, buddy, here you go. $5, and you have a competent deck to play. I think the signs of the game kind of like showing some slack was honestly a lot of it could be put on when more EP left the game, which kind of blew, because that's kind of when you started to see some of the weirdness seep in. You saw a bigger push for like product that completely like made itself defunct by the time it was released. Like the Youthberg, Leonore, and Jewel decks were cool, but what wasn't cool was the fact that like they put the triple rare versions into the main set. They could have easily put in, they could have easily made a Youthberg, Leonore, and Jewel like deck. Like they could have made those the starter decks and then put like the support within the main boosters. Like I don't know, they could have made like the Youthberg starter deck half like regular Youthberg with Zest, and then like in the main box you can pull for a Gust in Zygle or whatever. The Elementaria, that one was really cool. I thought Elementaria was a great addition to the game. Great card, honestly, a great card. And it definitely helped because it's so funny because like this is a card that was meant to kind of like make the main deck grade 4s that we got in set 4 that kind of just like not destroyed. They were just really strong, so they were the meta, but they kind of overstayed their welcome, and so this was a way for them to address it. There was an elephant in the room that was addressed, but the funniest part is it then became quite the card when they started doing Stride deck sets, which is like, hey, you can use cards from 2011 or 2015. I thought that was neat. But with hindsight, I think I would have preferred had they just been the newer units that could just Stride. I think one of the things that it's missing is the fact that they haven't really made older mechanics part of the main game. Like, yeah, we have D Legion, which I think game balance wise is better than Legion. I'm going to put that out there right now. Legion, yes, it is way stronger than D Legion, but sometimes strong does not mean good. I think D Legion is a really smart way of balancing out Legion, because yes, you have the ability to put 2 triggers back into the deck, but you're not extending the game by putting heals back, and you're not able to put the over trigger back, which let's get rid of the over trigger. Just going to say that. But it works the same way. And honestly, we probably got the best Legion mate in Overdress compared to what the original ones were. Stride is cool. Stride I don't think needs any balancing. I think Crest, ironically enough, made the game kind of unbalanced, because for a while Chrono Jet Dragon was just S tier. I don't even think that honestly you could probably keep the 2011 Vanguards without the Crest. And you could still kind of make a show of hey, yeah, this deck is still pretty decently strong. And they could have just made a new Stride too. They made new Strides, but they were obviously encounters. But nothing was stopping them from making a Fate Rider. Is it Fate Rider? The first Stride for Chrono. I always forget. I'm not a Chrono Jet fan. But they could have given that a G-Zone skill. Hey, if this is face up, your Vanguard's original power becomes 13 instead of a crest. But to each their own. I think by that point they had already started making crests for Mushigi or Mushiking. So the fact that they wanted to play around with that type of card design was also pretty cool. I just don't think it worked out in the end. But yeah, I mean, Standard obviously has all of the mechanics within that format. But I think when I say that I want it to be actually part of the main format is that I'd like to see decks that are not encounters have these effects. I'd like to see cards that are new cards that have D Legion, that have Stride. And I know for lore reasons, Stride is not a thing. But if Youthberg can tap into the power of Stride, then I'm pretty sure they could kind of make it work. And it is a work of fiction, so they can definitely make it work. Limit Break was also really cool too. I mean, we have a ton of cards that limit your effects. Gabwelius honestly could have been a Limit Break 4. So I don't know. I feel like they could definitely save a lot of room in the card text box if they just add in these older mechanics that kind of already did that. The next, and I think final thing, because we're already kind of running a bit much with the video, is the use of the drop zone. I think has kind of become I feel like that compared to previous eras is now more accessible. It's cool to be able to pick up my drop zone to look at cards that do something within it, and you're not just playing Aquaforce, or not Aquaforce, but Grand Blue. I don't know, they're just extending play a lot more, which I think is really, really cool, especially for decks like Phantom decks, decks like Youthberg that need a specific amount of specific cards in the drop zone, similar to Ritual. Honestly, it's funny, Dragform Youthberg, because originally Youthberg was revealed, I'm pretty sure a lot of people were comparing him to Luard, but Dragform Youthberg is very similar to Luard in that they both need specific things in the drop zone in order to get buffs. Now Ritual I think is cooler than whatever Dragio form is using, but what can you do? But there's so much extension in what you can do in the game compared to before. It may not seem like you can, because unlike the previous games, you're pretty much kind of stuck in the main phase. But I don't know. From the cards I've seen, the design of cards that I've seen in the last couple of sets, I'm very excited for this new era of the anime. I hope that this card design stays around onto the next season, in the next era. I hope they take this next era as an opportunity to get out with the old mechanics that didn't work and in with the new. Find ways to reimagine or rework certain mechanics that just don't seem like they're doing too well. And I don't know, maybe make the game more accessible to people. I know for the reprint video, some people weren't happy with the idea of a reprint product because it'll just take up shelf space at a store. But just because it's just because the problem doesn't have an outright solution doesn't mean that it shouldn't try for it. Like, I don't know, maybe let's add in more slots for reprints, or swap out some of the bad cards that they make or they commission. Like, imagine how much money they would save if they didn't have to commission artwork for a bunch of grade 1s or a bunch of commons that just don't get good effects. I feel like that's another thing too. We have bloated sets, which they definitely could work into either lowering some rarities of cards to help with booster case ratios or with case ratios. But honestly, that's in a wants video, and I think I'll save it for that. But yeah, I want to thank you guys for listening. I want you guys to let me know what are things in Divines that you like. That, it could be fucking anything, even from my video of the stuff I disliked. It's your opinion at the end of the day, and everyone's opinion is valid. So let me know what you guys like. Unless it's like, if you're gonna comment like, oh, the game sucks, without anything to back up the point that you're making, I'm just gonna hide your comment. Like, at least give me like a valid criticism of the game or the video, without it, sounding like a grade schooler. But yeah, that's the video. Thank you guys for listening. Like, comment, subscribe, share, and yeah, later.